If I deceive you, is that your fault? If I deceive you, is that your fault? When you lie and deceive others, is it just idle talk? In this clip, I want you to pay close attention so that you're not deceived. You need to reason and think for yourself. This is the footage we're going to analyze. We're only going to analyze this one clip because this is all we need. So this footage is going to reveal a lot of things. So let's have a look at the first one, a hyperlapse. So what is a hyperlapse? A hyperlapse is a time lapse, but the camera is moving. A time lapse is when the camera stands still. A hyperlapse is when the camera moves. Now, the footage that they provided is not just a time lapse, it must be a hyperlapse. It must be a hyperlapse. A time lapse is when the camera stands still. A hyperlapse is when the camera moves. In this clip, I want you to pay close attention so that you're not deceived. You need to reason and think for yourself. So here's an example of the hyperlapse. So I can say I can see the camera moving because the footage is moving. It's obvious. So they're keeping the building still. But in doing that, there's parallax shift. It has to be because the camera is moving. To illustrate it, I've got a rotating platform. I've got a camera and I've got a motorbike. Now that motorbike, no one's riding it. It's standing still. The camera is not moving. The camera is not moving, right? But the platform that it's on has to move because that represents the South Pole. Pay close attention so that you're not deceived. The street lamp represents the sun. So the circumference that they would have to travel would be 9,000 kilometers. In 24 hours, that means your camera is doing a speed of 375 kilometers. So from the perspective of the camera, that's what must happen, because remember, the camera has to face the sun. So what would the motorbike speed be? Well, it would be over that. It means double that. That motorbike, remember, no one's riding that motorbike, but from the reference of the camera, that motorbike speed would be over 700 kilometers an hour. So they want you to believe that they were doing that speed and there's no lens dirt, no wind, no nothing. If the camera is moving, it's not possible for you to take the footage that they've given us. The camera is not moving. For them to film the 24-hour sun, the earth must move. The camera must face the sun. So there must be parallax shift like you see in this image. So now they're going to say, well, you see, we used a 360 camera. Well, nothing changes. Those factors that the camera must move because the Earth is moving doesn't change. So we've looked at hyperlapse. So it's not possible, right, for your camera to move at that speed, because all the other elements around about you must also be moving at a phenomenal speed. Right? The fact that you can do a time lapse means that the Earth is not moving. And if the sun is standing still, you would never be able to capture the sun. It wouldn't even appear in your footage. So let's look at a 360 camera. If I'm using a 360 camera, nothing changes. What we've already discussed doesn't change. So why? Look, if I put two cameras back to back, or I use a 360 camera, it's the same thing. A 360 camera has got a lens in the front and a lens at the back. So all I need to do is to isolate the footage on the one side. How do I do that? By rotating the footage. So if I rotate the camera or I rotate the footage, it's the same thing. So don't let them bamboozle you with this bullshit. So let's put it into perspective. They on site at the South Pole, if they've got a 360 camera, right, the camera's not turning here, but the Earth is rotating and turning. So all I need to do in my NLE is, that's what they did. They put their footage in an NLE and made the sun stand still, because if the camera is standing still, the sun must orbit around you. So if I keep the sun still, that means the camera is rotating and the Earth is moving. It's the same thing. So don't let them bamboozle you. The fact that you can do a time lapse means that the Earth is not moving. And if the sun is standing still, you would never be able to capture the sun. It wouldn't even appear in your footage. Because if the camera is standing still, the sun must orbit around you. If I keep the sun still, that means the camera is rotating and the Earth is moving. It's the same thing. It's the same as if I'm using a camera, a single lens camera, or I'm using a 360 camera and I rotate the footage to keep the sun center. It's the same thing. So here's the point. If there is a South Pole with a 24-hour sun, then there must be extreme parallax shift. We don't see that in their footage. Because the Earth is not rotating, and if the Earth's not rotating, there cannot be a South Pole. So they're lying to you. So is there another way we can put this to the test? Yes, I've got a 360 camera. Remember, no one's riding the motorbike. The motorbike and the camera are just simply facing the same direction, and the platform is turning. Remember at what speed? 375 kilometers an hour. So what I do is I put a table in front of the camera and I put an arrow on the table. So why would I do this? Well, it's to test the rotation of the Earth. Remember, the camera is not turning. So the camera and the motorbike is traveling the same speed. So now all I need to do in my footage, in my NLE, is keep the sun still. And when I do that, what must happen to the table? Pay close attention so that you're not deceived. If I'm keeping the sun in front of me, the table must rotate. If I'm keeping the sun in front of me, the table must rotate because the Earth is rotating. Now, if you look at their footage, you see the same side of the table, right? Means the Earth's not rotating, and they're bullshitting you. Because they're a bunch of clowns. They're liars. Right? Their table must rotate. Because they're keeping the sun center in your footage. Let's look at it from the top. They're at the South Pole. That's their site. There's a mountain. They've got their tables. I've got my table with my arrow on it. Right? I've got my tripods all set around there. There's my building and my car. The 360 camera is facing the mountain. It's facing the same direction. But the Earth must rotate. And the sun is standing still. Right? Now, in their footage, this is what we see. So from the top then, if I'm keeping the sun centered in my footage, that means the camera is not turning, but when I edit the footage, I must rotate the footage so that the sun stands center. Therefore, the arrow on a table, and the table must rotate in my footage, which it doesn't. And the table must rotate in my footage, which it doesn't. So I'm just illustrating the issue in another way so that you can understand that they are clowns. They're just dumbass clowns. We've looked at the rotation of the Earth, and the evidence should be visible in their footage, whether I'm using a single lens or I'm using a 360 camera and I'm isolating the footage so that the sun is still in front of me. Now if we add clouds to that situation, the clouds must rotate around the center axis of your camera because the Earth is rotating. If I'm keeping the sun centered, that's what must happen. The clouds must rotate around the center axis of your camera because the Earth is rotating. If I'm keeping the sun centered, that's what must happen. Let's stay focused. If I've got a rotating platform, I put a spirit level and I put a cup. The cup must have a left-hand side and a right-hand side. So if the Earth is turning, what would my camera see? So remember, even if you're using a 360 camera, I just, in my NLE, isolate the sun and keep the sun standing still. Well, the spirit level can't bend around me. The spirit level must turn, rotate like this. You'll see one side of the spirit level, then you'll see the other side of the spirit level. The same with the spirit level in the cup. You must see the left side and the right side because it must rotate, because the earth is supposed to be rotating. Right, so we're looking at parallax shift. So let's put it into perspective. Remember, the camera, if I'm rotating the camera or I'm rotating the footage, it's the same thing. Things are in their relative position and distances from the center of the camera. So you must see parallax shift, and things can't bend around you. Right, as we see in the footage, things will move at different speeds, and the table can't bend. Mountains can't bend around you. They must keep their same. North and south and east and west must be the same. So you see this bending? It's because they're using a psych. So we're going to discuss what that is. So we see footage that is bending. So you see how the footage bends on the left, and as it rotates around, so I can rotate the footage either way, left or right. Can you see how it bends? The sun is bending in their footage. See how the table stretches. See how the camera stretches and bends. Right, so even if they're using a 360 camera, they're busted, they're lying. Now, if I bend the footage in the opposite direction, see how the perspective changes? They've bent the footage. Now I'm bending the footage in the other way, and I'm keeping the footage going. So I'm running the footage on the NLE, and I'm keeping the footage. So I've kept the proportion of their footage the same. No bendiness. So they used a psych. See how the camera now doesn't bend and distort? Right. So the bendy footage shows you that it's fake. So here's footage. I'm using a psych here, a digital psych. The footage is bending on the left. You see how the trees bend, and then they squash up to the middle, then they return and they bend back. How can we prove that they used a psych? Well, the shadows. So pay attention. These are clowns, right? They sent the Stooges out there to film the midnight sun. So the sun can't be in that position, and then the shadow on the buildings be on the left hand side, and this clown at the table, his shadow's on the right hand side, and that's your frame of reference. It's not possible.
So yeah, there it is. There's Sarah, and I'm gonna get her to walk.
Okay, stay there, then walk across to your right, that way.
There she goes. She's walking across.
That way, all the way.
There's my catwalk.
Wow, look at that. That's a huge shadow change.
That's fine, you did good.
Let's play that on repeat.
Okay, walk back. Just walk across all the way to our car.
Oh wow, my
Pause.
shadow just did something really weird.
There it is. Look at that. That's diverse. That's crazy shadow, but it's because we're the sources. It's a local source. It doesn't mean it's in the studio. It means that our sun is local on this flat plane.
He said, the light is directly in front of you. The shadow must also be directly in front of you. It doesn't matter how far away the light is. The shadow must be in front of you. Right? So the only way the shadow can be on the pointing towards the left on the left-hand side is that it must be stretched across the horizon. So you're saying if the sun is the center and the shadow of the buildings on the left and the shadow of the person at the table, it must be on his right. That must be their position. So what they've done is they're bending the footage on a cyc, and that's how you have those two shadows in that same frame of reference in front of you. And that's how you have those two shadows in that same frame of reference in front of you. Is this evidence or is this it's a clown show? These people are stupid. Dumbasses. So I can take this image, it's a panorama, but I'm keeping it in those same proportions as double 360 or 360. So I can take that image. When I put it in a CGI cyc, it means it allows me to pan. You see, it looks like I'm looking down wherever I point the camera. Now, when you use a cyc like this, remember this is a CGI cyc. Here's another image, right? Same principle. Right. I can warp this. Right. Must be the same principle. Right. So you see how it stretches, bendy, compacts in the front, and then stretches back as it moves out. That's a cyc. It's a CGI cyc. We see the same in their footage because it's fake. Right. God's not a liar. They are the liars. If you're deluded, it's your own fault because you're not paying attention. You've got no excuse. So watch out for the wolves. Right. Here's a guy who's supposed to be a Christian. Whoever you are, you need to be careful. Use your discernment and reason and think. You'll see the clowns. It shows the evil mindset and the evil heart condition that these bullshitters have. Because it's bullshit. Only a wolf will say to you, if I deceive you, that's your fault, because it's not your fault. That's another lie. They want to pull the wool over your eyes. If someone deceives you, it's not your fault. And when you lie and deceive others, is it just idle talk? Well, not according to Jesus Christ. There is going to be a judgment day for everybody. You and I cannot escape that. But Jesus said, but I say unto you, that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. So what was this idle talk that Jesus was talking about? Let's put it into context. What is this idle talk? This is idle talk. It's this. It's the clown show. It's the lies that the clowns present.